All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's GeoSolutions webinar focusing on MapStore and new MapStore developments with 3D and building digital twins using City of Genova and the work we've done with City of Genova as a case study. My name is Ryan Burley. With us, we have Tobia DePisa and Stefano Bovio, who will be focusing on the technical side of the presentation. As a brief introduction, for those of you unfamiliar with GeoSolutions, we're comprised of the core developers and many of the core code committers for open source products such as GeoServer, GeoNode, and MapStore. This is a very high concentration of open source geoengineering expertise made directly available to you. Our global headquarters is in Italy. We're also incorporated in the United States, and I would always like to make note of this for those of you in federal government in the United States. We're fully registered on SAM and as a small business as GeoSolutions USA Corp. For the products we support the 4 products listed here and many of their IO plugins and associated protocols. GeoServer is the open source server for sharing geospatial data. It's designed for interoperability and publishes data from any major spatial data source using open standards. MapStore, which we're focusing on today, is an open source, highly modular WebGIS framework developed by GeoSolutions. It is used to create, manage, and share maps, dashboards, and stories created by mixing geospatial content served from sources like OpenStreetMap, Bing, or from servers adhering to OGC standards like WFS, WMS, WMTS, etc. GeoNode is web-based application and platform for developing GIS and for deploying spatial data infrastructures. Today we're focusing on MapStore, but I do want to emphasize that we've been making much progress with GeoServer, GeoNode, and the other products we support. And our previous webinars are recorded and up on our YouTube channel. And this is an ongoing series of webinars that we're providing. So stay tuned on our blog, etc., for upcoming webinars as well. So how do we stay in business? What's our business model? I get asked all the time about how our business model works, given that we're in the open source business. We provide commercial support for open source, and our expertise can be used in a variety of ways. Enterprise support services is commercial support for the open source products listed. We can provide full technical assessment of GeoServer or the products that you're using. Associated environment performance, providing a detailed report on where performance can be improved, how to best structure data, optimization for security and performance, etc. If you're already working with open geo products, you can basically lean on us as core developers if you require a deeper level of support, or we're here to help you get up and running with full installation deployment of any of these products, or migrating, for example, modifying from current GIS to a hybridized open interoperable solution to save cost and increase capabilities. Deployment subscription provides 99+% uptime, where we proactively address performance updates and stay ahead of potential issues through monitoring customer GeoServer instances, for example. Customized solutions, this could be anything, any new customization or custom development work or integration that is needed to extend the functionality of GeoServer, for example, or work that you're doing with MapStore. Basically designed for your specific operations. And typically this is a firm fixed price solution where you tell us what you need and we build it, and the resulting code can be re-released as part of the open distribution. And finally, professional training. This can be on site, but is also available remotely. GeoSolutions has regularly scheduled trainings, and you can find these on our website for the schedule. We also have a full catalog of training courses available on our website specifically for your organization. These trainings are intensive and designed to enable your own capabilities internally. Our objective, our value proposition is to perform as your open source geospatial development team of engineers, helping you reduce costs and increase your capabilities through technical support, custom development, and knowledge transfer. As you can see here, we've supported and currently support customers all over the globe, as you can see from the map. Where our customers are located, with a higher concentration in North America and Europe, obviously, but we've performed everywhere. Each customer has specific requirements. No project or operation is exactly the same. And this demonstrates not only the breadth and range of customers we support, but also our expertise in working across a variety of industries, domains, and problem sets. As you see here, we have extensive experience supporting customers in Earth observation, defense, emergency management, everything from ocean vessel tracking, where we're supporting the tracking of 200,000+ vessels at any given time, to real-time wildfire mapping and evacuation route updating, to real-time high-definition mapping for autonomous vehicle navigation. Basically anything requiring the management and movement of massive vector and raster spatial temporal data from sensor to end user applications is at the core of our expertise. Finally, we are active OSGeo, OGC, and USGIF members. We're active sponsors with OSGeo. We participate and contribute to OGC innovation programs such as the test beds and disaster pilots. And we're continually extending and developing new open source capabilities to address real world problems. As USGIF members, support the federal government and contractors however we can with GeoInt focused operations, and we will be at GeoInt this year in May in St. Louis. You'll find us at conferences, workshops, and industry events organized by these industry associations. And to keep it on your radar, FOSS4G is in October. If you search FOSS4G North America, the webpage should be up. And for those of you in North America, we're looking forward to continuing the open source momentum happening here. And we're supporting that event as well. Aside from all the sales kind of mumbo jumbo, we're always interested in how you're working with open source tools, specifically GeoServer, MapStore, et cetera. If you ever have any questions, we're always here to help out. And you can always reach out to us directly. And we're always interested in hearing the projects, et cetera, that are out there in the wild and where we can support those. So with that, I will stop sharing from here and pass it over to Tobia and Stefano. And thanks again, everyone, for joining today. And we'll cover questions and answers at the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Okay, thank you for sharing, Stefano. Well, can you hear me? Yes, good. Well, thank you all for joining this MapStore webinar. Indeed, I'm really glad to have you all here to stay tuned with the MapStore evolutions and updates we release. Well, let's jump straight to the point. This MapStore webinar is intended to provide a comprehensive and a more focused overview of main 3D features and functionalities that GeoSolutions developed during the last year, effectively, also thanks to the external collaboration, contribution, and funding from the City of Genoa, public administration, as well as private companies, starting from the first updates we did for the 3D mode in MapStore and the 3D tiles supports for further following evolution, represented by the implementation of specific tools as well as more advanced support for the 3D styling. In particular, for this webinar, we will go through the main 3D tools of MapStore by providing a quick but representative overview of their capabilities, as well as what is behind the scenes under certain extents in the involved 3D data preparation. We will see all these 3D functionalities in action, sharing also our indications and hints where possible according to the time we have today, from what we discovered over time in working with the 3D in MapStore. For the purpose of the webinar, we have prepared a couple of maps to show how MapStore tools can be used to cover a real-world scenario in the City of Genoa. For this reason, a special thanks goes to the Territorial Information System Office of the Municipality of Genova, which effectively commissioned many of the features that you will see in this presentation, and who also kindly provided some of the data and samples we used for our demo maps. Well, I leave the talk now to my colleague Stefano Bobbio so that he can illustrate all the material we have prepared for this webinar, going through the maps, the demo maps we have prepared. Up to you, Stefano.
Thanks, Tobia, and hi everybody. The today's presentation we go through the MapStore, Map Viewer in particular, the application, and we want to try to showcase initially in the first part through video some results that we obtain using 3D functionality that are available in the latest release of MapStore. Currently, I'm showing you the version, the latest version, the 2023-0100. And the idea is to cover three main plugins that we introduce: the map views, the measurement, and some enhancement on the style editor. Before to start with the video, I want to explain what's the concept of map view that we introduce. MapStore, for the one that knows as the application, the map viewer that allows to see maps. So to include layer and interact with the layer inside the map. Working with the Comune of Genova, we were able to implement and introduce a concept of description of these maps using the map viewer, so are tools that allow to highlight and describe a part of the map through navigation tools. Now, let me start with the first example. We have two video examples. The first focus more on the urban transformation, so how location could be described through different view inside the map viewer or MapStore. So how they change in the city, so the sequence, the evolution that could go from the past to the future, or from the present to the future, or from the present to the past. Because if you are working with historical data, we have some example how to apply that on the map viewer. Then we have another video that include the use of the map viewer to highlight an infrastructure, in particular the subway. So how you can use that to show some focus point of the city. So let's start from the first one. And this one is the urban transformation. So we worked to understand which one could be some focus point on the Genova city to describe the map viewer functionality and how that works. We highlight the waterfront, the new tunnel that will be constructed. I mean, there is a project of the tunnel that go as new infrastructure inside the city, and the lighthouse. As you can see, the map viewer is working. It's the panel on the left as tool that it's in this case it's in navigation mode, so it's transitioning between views and changing layer that are present. So switching through a view to another, there is a change from the point of view, but in some case also the layer that you are seeing. Here to represent the project of the waterfront, we use initially the Genova 3D tiles that represent the present situation, so the 3D model of the city. Then working with this kind of view, it's possible to remove a portion of the 3D tile using a clipping and adding a new model. In this case, we use a demonstration model. We took the master plan from the project that has been presented for the new waterfront, and we add some volume to represent what can be done as interaction between different layers. So here we have the 3D model, the 3D tiles, and the base layer as mosaic. After this, we introduce also the concept of the mixing different 3D tiles. So it's possible to remove a portion of area from a 3D tile and show another 3D tile inside. This, for example, could be useful to represent what is under the ground, and in this case, to show the structure of the new project. And this mix of layer give an idea on how the project could be evolved. And all these views are, you can interact with the view even if they are in a navigation mode. Now, next project area.
I'm sorry if I interrupt, Stefano. Basically, I would like to simply add that the waterfront project structure view that we have seen before is a sample, again, provided by the municipality of Genoa. It is a partial sample of the project, representing mostly the foundation of the new building. Due to the complexity of the original 3D tile, we have basically converted it to a GLB 3D model. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stefano. And we have also simplified it through compression technologies using open source software. It is effectively particularly interesting in all these views. It is particularly interesting the 3D tile mesh of the city of Genova, acquired from the aircraft through modern and advanced photogrammetric technologies, together with specific post-processing of raw data produced during the flight using a dedicated software. I mean, please go ahead.
Okay. So next part of the project and the view that we added in this first showcase is the project of the underwater tunnel. Here we added this project to show another functionality of the map viewer, that it's the globe translucency. As you can see in the transition, now it's more visible because there is a fade by distance. So it's possible to show something under the surface, in this case, the water. And to make this model that you can see, it's a model done with open source software. As Tobias said before, we reconstruct two cylinders, in this case, to represent the tunnel using original data. So we go through just GIS tools, then recreated the 3D volume to represent the tunnel. The last area location that we want to highlight is the lighthouse of Genova. In this case, because we want to show how we can use historical data with the 3D tile data, and to use that to intersect and show a different use for the project. In this case, this model provided by the Comune of Genova, it's the promontory that was the historical one, reconstructed with as a mesh. So from historical maps has been rebuilt as a mesh, and then built and generated through the 3D tiles. So the client Cesium, in this case used by MapStore, it's able to render and show. And here, as last view, we want to show the possibility to hide completely the background, to have a sort of object that could be used to analyze a sort of comparison with the present and the past. And interesting to see that there are some part of the current that are matching the profile that we had in the promontory. So this showcase a first use of the map viewer, and how the map views and the map viewer of MapStore has been enhanced by this new functionality. So it's more descriptive. You can see a panel for each. So it's possible to add a panel to describe each views, and this kind of views can be also this kind of map views could be also just to group layer and to have a sort of container, and make it easier to navigate through data. Now, next
Yeah,
video.
I would like, I'm sorry, Stefano, I would like to highlight the promontory 3D tile data you have shown before that is provided by the City of Genoa, which is coming from a really fine processing, if I remember well, of level curves from historical maps. And it is effectively relevant in this case to point out how historical data can be useful to evaluate more than in a usual 2D map the impact of the urban evolution, especially in a specific territorial context like the one of the City of Genoa. That's it.
Okay, so we can go to the next example use case. Here, instead to have multiple project area, we decide to show an infrastructure. In this case, the subway infrastructure. Let me start again. As you saw in the previous video, we start with the play button at the top, the presentation inside to show the different views. And here there is a mix of layer provided. There is the hillshade provided by the community of Genova that we are using to represent the combined with terrain to make this more representative of the relief. Then we have the highlight of each station. So here we use as the subway line a 3D model that we recreated from OpenStreetMap data. And in that case, we were able to convert and generate a sort of cylinder also in this case to represent the model. So it's just demonstrative. The data of the station was provided by the WFS endpoint from the municipality of Genova. And each of these area has been clipped. So we are using the 3D tile that coming from Genova that it has been clipped through a circle that it's around 150 meters. This also to provide another way to use the tool that we have inside this new map views plugin. As you can see, the transition in this case through the different view, it's not a fly to movement, but it's directly a rendering of the next station. We introduced this different way to navigate also because while working on this use case, we noticed that in some cases it's needed a different way to load data. So it's important when we create map views to balance the content of each views and balance also the kind of transition that we want to achieve. And the important part that we were able to get at the end, it's the advice that we can give is the amount of layer that should be loaded should be around 2-3 per view. So this optimize the view that we are seeing, and at the end give a nice transition in between the different views. Now this is the last station, and we completed also this next showcase. Now, starting from, I don't know if Tobia, you have something to add more on these kind of views. If not, we can go to the live demonstrations starting from this data.
But just a few consideration indeed. Views are useful for many possible use cases. It is indeed, as you have shown with these samples, it is also another way if you want that you have to, in MapStore, to tell a story inside the map viewer effectively. So yeah, that's the things that I can add.
Okay, now we can start with this second part that it's more focused on a live demonstration. So we see that how the map view at the end it's rendered and shown by the client. Now we can see inside an actual MapStore client, how we can create a new view and how this tool is available. Next to that, in parallel of this, we can see also how to configure a new symbolizer that we introduced, that it's used to add a new 3D model to the map, that it's an alternative to the 3D tiles, and then some example and a showcase of the measurement tool. So we can start to add a new view from the previous the map that we saw before. So this one, it's the same view that the same maps that we saw before. So the one with the station, the subway station. The idea is to add a station that it's in provision, that it's in constructors, that it's the Corvetto one. So we are using this to show how the tool is working. First of all, the tool it's available for the anonymous user when a map is already inside the map viewer, and it's the button on the left. So one could enable or disable the views. So this button it's enabling and disabling the views. Then only authenticated user could see additional button in this toolbar, and these additional buttons are the one that will allow us to edit views. Before to go to the editing, I want to show the main button that we can see here. We have the show list, and this shows the views that we have inside the map. So one could navigate through them and see each of these. So one, you click on one of these component, you are directly the view is set to the map, the current map views. So the camera is set to the view that we are seeing. Then we have the show view position. So it's possible to see as a debugging tool, but also to have to understand how the camera are positioned based on each views here. So we can see all of this one in yellow. We have the current selected one that it's at the top, the subway, and then we can see all the other where they are located. So it's easier also to detect which one. For example, if you don't have the label, we have a layer that has the label on top, but if you don't add that, for example, you can use this to show which one is the view and where it's looking at. So this is the circle is the position of the camera that it's looking at to a target on the map.
And it is basically one of the interesting updates that we provided for the to enrich, I mean, the styling capabilities of the 3D mode in MapStore.
Yeah, that's true. Then next set of tools are the navigation one that allow to go back and forth in between views. So one can select this item or can instead move through with the arrow. So left and right, and then so next and the previous one, or the last and the first one. So if you want to go to the last one, you can go there, and so on. So we can navigate. Then there is the play button that it's work like a presentation. So start a presentation and loop through all the view as we saw in the video.
I would like to simply highlight the fact that the vector data that we are seeing here are coming from the municipality of Genova GeoServer, okay, or directly from the WFS, or imported in the map as a vector layer, okay. But it is also important to point out how 2D data in general are represented together with the 3D ones in the same views. The rendering effectively of vector features in a 3D map has been optimized through specific styling enhancement aimed to better represent and to adapt 2D features to our 3D context effectively. So like the 3 model for WFS vector styling, the drape mode that we are seeing here, and things like that. You can continue, Stefan.
Yeah. So now that we saw the default tool for an anonymous user, we can see the authenticated user, how it's different to this toolbar. Let me log in with the default credential. Okay, switching to the 3D. And let's go to a view. Okay, so here now we have a new set of tools that are the one that are available only for the authenticated user that can edit the map. So by default, you will see that this button is not highlighted, is not toggled. When you toggle this, you get this panel and also the tool that allows you to edit the views. Now the list also has some changes. As before, we have the show view position that allow us to have an overview on where they are located. And then we have the possibility to sort, because maybe we want a different order of this view for the presentation, so we can move around the views. So now the brain will be before the principal one. And we have also the possibility to remove a view. If we do that by mistake, we have the tool to undo or redo some changes, so to go back to the previous one selected. Now, as I anticipated before, the sample that we want to show is a new station that we want to add. And to do that, we will use some data that we found on Wikipedia and data that we get from the Comune of Genova. We are using the WFS layer that they have for the subway station. So let's start to create a new view that it's done by clicking on Add New. So this create, now it's empty because each view allows to select which layer should be visible or not. So right now we can add, for example, a background just to have an orientation on the map. And let's say that we know that the new view it's called Corvetto. So we can click on the editing button, is the pencil, and here allow to change us the title. Okay. So now we have this new view, and by default, it's take the last position, the position when you click the plus button. So when we are going back to Corvetto, we have this position inside the map. And if we want to change this position, we can click on the edit button, and we have the position tab. Here we have the information of the camera that we are moving around while we are panning through the map. So to get the correct location, we need the layer that gives us the center. So we can use a WFS layer, and there is the catalog from MapStore. I preloaded the WFS one from the Comune of Genova. And here we are looking for the station. It's in Italian, so I need to look for stazioni. And we can add this layer, and this layer will help us to give the position. So we have the, let's say, here this circle. We can start to change a bit the style. So to change the style, we can go to the table of content, click into the layer that we just added, then select the settings. And from the settings, we can change the style. I'm going to remove all the default one and adding a new style. Now the styling, let me add a color that it's more visible. Let's see, it's here, maybe something. It's behind the terrain and I need to clamp to the ground. Now it's here. And we can go to apply a position relative and move this at the top 10 meters. Okay, now the star is here and it's visible. So we need to understand which one is the station. I'm going to remove the background for a moment. Okay, we have the station here. And I'm clicking to, I think it's this one because the one without the label. So it's this one, Corvetto. So the position that we want to highlight on the map is this one. So I'm going to go back to the views. And we provided this tool that it's the position, this button that it's capture the view. So when we click this, we automatically get the view stored in the one that we are looking at. So next time we are changing the position and go back to Corvetto, we store the position previously selected. Now, just to give more context around here, we are going from the table of content to turn on the layer, the Genoa 3D layer. So we have the a bit of context around the map. So we saw that it's possible through the editing to add a new position and capture the one that we prefer. Let's say that we want to get this position, capture this. Then another part that could be modify, it's the animation, and the animation is the transition in between two views. So one could add, once the play button is running, a different number of seconds for each views. And also if the transitions should work with a fly to, so it's a smooth transition or a set view transition. So you don't see movement of the camera, but you see the next view right away. And as I said before, tweaking this and using this in different way could help the loading of the different views. Now, the interesting tool that we saw previously in the video was the one that allowed us to clip or mask some part of the city. Now let's start with the mask. The mask could be used and changed based on, so it could be used with vector or WFS layer. So one could add a WFS layer that are polygon to the map, and this polygon could be used to mask a portion of the map. Now, to the purpose of the demo, I prepared a layer that it's this one. I don't want to zoom. So you can see there is a blue circle here. There are also other blue area. Now, once this one is added to the map, we could enable the mask and right away this layer is used. But if we hide the layer and you see that nothing is visible, that's because there is no mask on the map. So we want to use the sample that we just added. So it's a vector layer with a polygon. And once we add this to the map, we have the mask that it's highlighting only the surface that's covered by the polygon of the layer that we include. So this is a GeoJSON that we added with some circle. And this one are highlighting all the station plus two, let's say, additional polygon that are to show you some limitation of the clipping. Anyway, this, as you can see, using the mask, you can highlight some portion. The mask is hiding all the other part of the 3D tile that we are tagging. So all the 3D tile inside this map will be masked with this layer. There is also the option to use the inverse, and the inverse will be the opposite for what we can see here. So we can get the opposite. So we can clip the hole for this polygon, and we can apply an offset that represents the area around that we want to clip. So we can remove for the moment the mask, and as you can see, the mask is able also to cut area that are not convex, concave. So it's quite useful to when you need to get an overlay of multiple points from the distance. So an overview is perfect. For example, the first view that we saw for the subway is perfect for this use. While the possibility to cut portion, it's called the clipping that we saw. We can see right now that it's inside the layer option, and the clipping, it's different. It's possible to clip a portion of terrain or 3D tile, but you can use only one polygon at the time. We used that in the previous presentation to show for example, when we add the waterfront new project. In that case, we add a model, and inside we include, we cut the 3D tile, inside we add the model. And we can try to do something like this also for this view. So we have the circle. So we know that we can, we know that this layer is called 3D Genova 3D. For inside the layer option, we have for each layer the possibility to add and edit some properties. When there is a 3D tile, it's possible to use a clipping layer. So we need a layer source. We use the map sample. If it's hard to, or you don't remember the name of the feature because there is we add this functionality that show and highlight with the name. This is the name feature 7.
As you can see, it is effectively a really great combination of different source of data, okay, to reach your objectives, basically in the views definitions.
One thing that I would like to highlight the difference between the mask and the clipping. The clipping works well with, for example, circle square, but does not work when you have concave polygons. For example, if you are using the feature 10, in this case, not able to draw the star, we optimize the client to construct the correct polygon, the correct convex polygon to avoid the issue, but this is the current limitation. So we suggest to use the clipping when we want to cut with a precise sort of square or a circle shape, a surface or a place that inside ellipses inside the city. Now we can use this for the feature 7. And as you can see, we cut a portion of the 3D tile. We can do the same also with the terrain. So we can cut. Now here it's white because we use the empty, but if we are using OSM, we can see now that we have the OSM on the terrain, and we can cut with the same clipping feature. That is the 10, was the 7, sorry.
Yes, the 7.
So now here we have the clipping working with the 3D tile and with the terrain. The clipping is also useful if you want to add a portion of 3D tile inside the 3D tile. We know that, as I said before, the mask works on all the 3D tile. You cannot choose which is the 3D tile affected by the mask, but with the clipping you can. So the strength of the clipping that you can use two 3D tiles inside one inside the other. For example, the historical data that we saw, the lighthouse of Genoa with the hill. So that intersection is done using two kinds of clipping. And this is that could be an interesting result and use of the clipping tool. Now let's say that we want to add a new element to this view. So instead of the star, to add a model. And let's say that we don't have the 3D tile, so we don't generate the 3D tile, but we have a 3D model of a section or a building that we want to add here to show the project. In MapStore, in the latest release, we added the new symbolizer for the point that is called the model symbolizer. And to use that, you need to go to the layer. Now we need to go to the star layer that it's in the station. Settings tool, styling. Now here we use the mark symbolizer. We remove this and we include the add 3D mode rule, this one. Now here we need a GLB file. GLB file is a file that include a 3D scene. It's the binary of the GLTF, so a standard that could be created, for example, with tools software such as Blender, and could be exported. So you can create there your 3D model and then export and use that in MapStore. Now here I prepared a model that it's the section of the station. Let's add here. Now it's not visible. That's because it's behind the terrain. So let me before remove the terrain and make this visible. Okay. Now it's under the terrain, so it needs to be moved around. Going back. Now here, the option that we have for the 3D model is to scale that if you need to adjust. So we can scale by 2 factor. Usually it should be by 1 if you have that prepared with the correct meter unit of measure. Then we can rotate this. So we can rotate on the different axes. I think right now to this model, we need only to rotate to the z-axis to be the correct, facing the correct direction. And we can apply an additional color on top. This will work and will be multiplied to the model. So if you have a model that is a solid color, you can apply that. And finally, you can clamp the position. So change the position, clamp. If you have a terrain, it's moving the position to attach that to the terrain. So if the model is currently located, you can move that. So here is to show that there is this new symbolizer that could be used inside and within a view. So here, if we close and have this as before, let me turn on again the 3D model. As you can see, we can add a 3D model inside. This is just to show, for example, a project. You can use the clipping, so to show that it's behind, something behind the view will reach this position. You can show the project. Maybe you can do also state as the waterfront. So step by step from different view, have the evolution and show the project. An alternative to the clipping to the terrain is to use the transparency. So you can remove the clipping to the terrain and use the globe's translucency. You can enable, and enabling that, you can see that you can tweak the opacity and show a difference, show what behind as under the terrain, for example, in this case. You can also add this option that fades the translucency by distance. So we can change a bit, for example, 500 meters and 50 meters, 500 meters. So you can zoom in, zoom out, and this will fade the opacity of the terrain.
This transparency changes according to the scale, basically.
Finally, we have the description that if it's not added, you will not see anything in the panel. But if you add something, you can include, for example, Corvetto station. You have the rich text tools and the possibility to include also images. Let's say you have an image. So the same project that we build on top of that, the 3D model, or video. So you can embed also video with a embed link. And this will be available to the user that will reach this view. Now this covers what the map view can do. The combination, as you can see, are multiple. There is a different way to achieve enhanced visualization, because this add clipping, transparency, something that usually in the map viewer you don't have. This is not limited only to the 3D, but it's possible also into 2D mode to use the map views. There are not the same tools we can see right now here. So here you have the description as you have in 3D, but you don't have the clipping, masking, but only the opacity option for the layer, the visibility option, opacity option for the layer supported for the 2D mode. But you can create also this kind of description and story with the 2D view, so moving around inside the 2D environment.
Effectively, all the 3D capabilities in 2D mode are not available effectively.
Discover the map viewer and the new 3D style symbolizer that was the model, add the model, 3D model inside within the 3D tiles. The other enhancement that we included inside MapStore, it's the measure. The measure tool now will showcase what has been added to the measure tool inside the 3D environment. It's a bit different to the 2D because it's a different way to measure, because we have also the Z value that you have here. And so you can also have the needs to compute slope and different way to compute also angles. Now to enable the 3D, the measure in 3D mode, you click on the ruler. Now here you have all the available measure type. The first one highlighted by default is the distance. So here we can measure distance. So this will get the feature on top of the 3D tiles. So we are able to measure on all the surfaces. So this will give us the total amount of meter that we compute, but also for each segment, the value. And we can on the fly switch to unit of measure, and this will be updated on the fly to have the different information. Next measurement way that we added is the area. So we can take a surface and compute the area, similar to the distance computation. We have for each segment that we draw, for each side that we have the measure, and finally the surface value. So this is a square meter we can change to a different unit of measure as we did for the distance. We included also that we think that it's interesting to use also to adjust the position of 3D tile. Sometimes the offset of 3D tile is not correct or needs some tweaks. We saw that sometimes also the terrain used is not matching the 3D tile. So this tool of get the quote of the point on top of a feature, it's usually give us the latitude, longitude, but also the altitude that it's given from the absolute zero of the ellipsoid that is computed in Cesio. We introduce also the measure height from terrain, so it's getting the position of an element from the top to the terrain. So it's drawing a line from the position that we click on top to the terrain. So it's computing this distance. Next one is the angle. To draw an angle, we need to draw 3 points, and this we get 3 points, and we get the angle in between of the two sides that we draw, and it's here. Is here the value. Finally, the slope. Similar to the angle, we need 3 points because we need to compute a surface, and when we get the surface, we get also the slope of the surface, so the degrees.
As you can see, a tooltip indicates how you have to interact with the map to do the measurement, basically.
Finally, there is a possibility to clear the measure and discover this functionality. I think I showcase the main tools, and that's it from the latest update from the MapStore announcement.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefano. Indeed, we have reached basically the end of this webinar. So we can, I think, start from the continue, I mean, with the Q&A session. Anyway, thank you all for attending this webinar. I mean, I hope what you have seen has piqued your interest, and you enjoyed it indeed. Our objective, starting from 2022, was mainly to fill the gap in the MapStore 3D capabilities, and for this reason, we have started a path aimed to, I mean, also enrich it over time, also during 2023, with new functionalities and general improvements, since the use of the 3D mode is effectively becoming more and more requested in main contexts of use. Well, to provide a more realistic representation, I mean, of the data that you want to provide and use for various purposes. I can add, before switching to the Q&A session, that for the near future, we expect to release more and more interesting and useful features and announcements still around the 3D, such as, for example, the ability to persist the map type when you save the map, for example, so that if you save the map in 3D, you will find again the 3D mode when you access it in a second moment. Support for 3D maps also in dashboards and geostories, and of course connected announcements. Again, we have in plan, I mean, to update the Cesium.js library again to be basically updated on this, and effectively, especially for supporting the new 3D tiles, the 3D tiles 1.1 specification version, to be precise. And So many others, many more, I mean. So 3D tile selector, support for MapStore widgets also in 3D modes. A lot of new enhancements and new features are expected for this 3D mode. So yeah, I think that we can, Ryan and Stefano, we can jump to the Q&A section. I saw that we have 3 questions. Yeah.
Yeah, looks like we have a few questions and a compliment or two.
Yes.
Thanks again, Tobia and Stefano. Awesome work. Very visually engaging, very powerful tool set, and very generally impressive. So thanks again for the demo and educating us today. The first question comes from Luis. Does GeoNode have any of these plugins? If yes, what are their name? And he's trying to use Globe View Switcher in GeoNode 3.3.x, but it doesn't work. And he's looking for help on understanding how to use at least only the 3D view on GeoNode.
Well, the 3D mode, correct me if I'm wrong, Stefano, but has not been included yet in GeoNode.
Yeah, that's true.
It still required some work to be integrated, and it will be, I think, available soon anyway. Its inclusion is under discussion and evaluation, I mean.
Excellent, thank you for that. And if there again, in general, if there are follow-up questions to the presentation today or just general questions, feel free to email info@geosolutionsgroup.com anytime with questions. The next question from Julian. When accessing the Genova server for adding services, is the connection secured?
Well,
accessing the service, okay. So it does require password.
Yeah, the GeoServer of the City of Genova is under HTTPS, of course, so it is secure. Generally speaking, users are allowed to see data according to the authorization rules defined by the City of Genova administrators on it.
Understood, thank you. From an autonomous attendee, regarding the deployment of MapStore in a server versus the cloud. This user uses MapStore as a developer. The front end in a port and the back end in a port. How can I deploy the project in my server or in the cloud?
Well, the interesting documentation on this, I think the general one is in our online guide. Okay, so you can, I think you can start from it and ask on the mailing list for having, I mean, more detailed information if you want. Generally speaking, clouds environment are providing all the services, or I mean base services that MapStore can is based on, of course, starting from the database tier and things like that. Nothing more is effectively needed. Anyway, it is available also a Docker image available online that we release across different versions that can be used for a deployment if needed.
Wonderful. And again, if more assistance is needed on the deployment, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We can help out. Another question from autonomous attendee: what is the difference between the MapStore.war and the GitHub of GeoSolution and the MapStore.war that they built with the .build.sh?
But I don't think there is any difference, more or less, if you want to answer to this, Stefano. But the build.js,
I think it depends on the branch that you are working on, because the build.sh, it's building the branch.
Of course, yes.
That you are working on at that time. So the release in the GitHub, the word that you see there is the latest stable release usually. So if you are downloading from the GitHub MapStore, usually it's switched right away to master, that it's the unstable one. So if you're building that, it's building the word with, I mean, the latest feature, but it's not the stable one. So you can use the build.sh if you are working on a fork, on a custom branch. That's the main difference.
Excellent. Next question from Ivan Cardenas. Is it possible to use the 3D visualization on the dashboards?
As I said before, there is an improvement not present in the last measure release, what we have released a few weeks ago. It is possible now, currently in master, we are working effectively on it. So in the master branch, it is possible to load 3D maps, but it is not yet released. So it will be part of the next measure release. The scheduled in September, if I remember correctly.
Very nice. Next question is from Stefan Overkamp. Clicking on the feature, for example, buildings in a 3D tile layer doesn't request get feature info. Instead, it shows properties. Could this be enhanced through a template using these properties?
Do you want to answer to this, Stefano?
Yeah, right now the 3D tiles does not have the panel for the feature info available, so you will need some investigation and work to understand. I mean, technically it seems possible because the information on the feature is inside the state. So, but it needs some look into that to understand if it's completely supportable.
Okay, got it. Next question is from Aki. Does styling in MapStore override the styles from GeoServer for 2D and 3D? Or I guess can styling MapStore override styles from GeoServer for 2D and 3D?
Well, the MapStore style editor is effectively working on top of the GeoServer REST APIs. So using it is effectively possible to edit styles in GeoServer edits and create styles in GeoServer. So you can in MapStore loads the styles assigned in GeoServer. You can choose between the available style assigned to the layers in to the layer in GeoServer and open them and edit styles directly from the MapStore visual style editor or code style editor for a more finest, editing of the style. For 3D, correct me if I'm wrong, Stefano. Maybe you want to say more in detail a few aspects, but main enhancements that we have provided for the style editor are concerning vector layers. Okay, so for effectively enriching the ability to tune and visualize them in 3D mode. So the style is in this case is for vector layer is managed locally.
Yeah, just a note that when we are talking with GeoServer, we are talking in particular with layer of type WMS.
WMS, yes, indeed.
So
indeed. Thank you for clarifying.
Because
this.
Also in 3D there is WMS, so you can also in that case style add on GeoServer. As Tobias said, we add also the possibility to edit style for 3D tiles, vector, and WFS, and that's it stored in the map configuration, not in the GeoServer.
Very good. Questions keep flowing in. The next one's from Hans Hansen. Can we expect to see volume measurements as an option in the measure tool at some point?
Well, it is an interesting question, and maybe it could be a good announcement for the future. We have not at the moment plans for this, but it is something that we might consider at some point.
Very good. And in general, if anyone ever has feature requests or if there's development that you might want to have funded or et cetera to extend out the capabilities of MapStore or other tools, for example, again, feel free to reach out to us. Next question. Can I customize the homepage like the logo and the title using the mapstore.war and the GitHub?
Yes, you can. And you can find a guideline for this in our training documentation. It is online. So I can provide the link right now in the chat if you want. That's it.
Excellent.
There are a few steps that you can follow for minimum customizations. I mean, of the of these aspects you have mentioned. Okay.
Very nice.
You can do more, of course. You can find all the material for more advanced customization in our online documentation in general.
Very good. And again, if you have problems finding things in documentation, or if you're looking for documentation, reach out to us and we can provide guidance on where to find information. That's it for the questions. Maybe we leave it open for another moment. Feel free to use the Q&A tool in the Zoom application if there are any last minute questions. Here we go. Rita is asking if there is a guide for basically deployment. I'm assuming that that's documented online as well.
Well, I think that maybe we can also consider to enrich our online documentation if something is missing in the near future, in order to help part of the community for these specific things. So we can consider this. I will check it afterwards and see it. So
okay.
You can stay tuned and ask in the mailing list to. I mean, yes, to stay tuned on this.
Okay, excellent. And I believe that's it, unless there are any last minute questions. I think we can summarize and wrap up. Again, the video of this webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel and also featured on our blog, geosolutionsgroup.com. Feel free to forward to others that might have missed the webinar, if there are others that you know are interested. And again, there are other videos on our YouTube channel as well. It's a very rich source of information on the past webinars that we've done with other products. With that, thank you, Stefano. Thank you, Tobia. Again, fantastic webinar, and we look forward to hearing questions from folks. Again, you can reach us at info@geosolutionsgroup.com, and we're always here to help out wherever we can. And thanks again. Have a great day, evening, afternoon, wherever you may be. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, you too, Ryan, and thank you all for attending this webinar.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.